I want to thank you guys for coming today, and I want to thank those that are watching at home. We know that it's difficult when you can't be here, but we want you to know that we're glad that you're part of this, and we're counting you as part of it, even though you're not here, but you're watching. And so I want to thank each person who's here with us. So as we go through this, let this be a place of rest for you. Let this be a place that you can come back to in difficult times and in times to come and reflect. So don't let this be a scary place, but let this be a place of rest. So Mike, I want to ask you to come up and read the eulogy. After Mike's done the eulogy, I will open it up for any of you that would like to share a word. If you have a memory or a thought or something you want to share, you can think about that while Mike's sharing, and I'll give you an opportunity to come up and do that after.
So on Friday, May 1st, 2020, our grandmother, Auntie Helen, passed away, peacefully surrounded by family at the QE2 Hospital in Grand Prairie, Alberta at the age of 99 years. Grandma was born in Vida, Manitoba on August 28th, 1920, the second of 6 children born to Mike and Mary Hootzel. Her family included sisters Annie, as we knew her, Auntie Anne, Auntie Mary, Auntie Elsie, and her brothers Uncle George and Uncle Emil. 1928, after being born and living the first 8 years in Manitoba, the stories of sod houses, the early days, raised on the farm, right on the Manitoba and U.S. border. Life was tough. Times were tough. Her father Mike learned about land in the Peace Country through his sister, and in the fall of 1928 they left Manitoba heading for the Peace Country. The stories of going from Vida over to the train station, they rented 2 boxcars, loaded up the machines, loaded up the cattle, loaded up what they could, and took a week to go across country to Edmonton. They got to Edmonton and they had to wait there a couple days because the trains going up to Rycroft didn't work until Monday. So they spent that weekend at the YMCA, I believe was the story behind it, and then on Monday headed up to the Peace Country. They made their way to Rycroft. They were met by Auntie Chibaba, who was already there, and they stayed there for the winter. Before getting their homestead in the spring in the Constituent area across 2 creeks in the spring of 1929. Life was hard in those days, breaking land, building the farm. We all heard the stories about picking roots, picking rocks. Okay, those were daily chores as a young child on the farm in the bush. That was the words. Lived in the bush. The wealth of stories, as we remember in the young days, is amazing. Stories of sod houses, living in granaries. Okay, the moose for the pet, that was one that is ingrained forever. The hungry 30s, the influence that had on her. Farming, family, always important. She would talk for hours about it, and we listened for hours, and we never stopped her. We listened, and we regaled in those stories all the way. On August 6, 1938, she married Pete Rappel. The story was sitting in the restaurant, and he's throwing peanuts at her. Okay. We all remember that. Next thing you know, they get married. Young couple lived over in the DeVale area on the farm. Granary bought on a loan from her dad. And they hauled the lumber over there, built the granary, and that was the first house over there. Young couple lived there, and on July 12, 1939, came the proud parents of a baby boy, Uncle Darrell. Lots of stories of Uncle Darrell in the beginning, working, chopping roots, working with his mother on the farm, building, digging, putting shingles on the house, all of those stories. Okay. September 14th, 1950, their second son, Mike, was born. In the fall of 1957, they decided Spirit River, that was enough. Family moved to Grand Prairie. They built a lot for Mr. Tissenden over in the Montrose area where the house is to this day, and proceeded to build that forever home. Helen spent 28, weird to call her Helen. Grandma spent 28 years working for the hospitals in Grand Prairie. She was proud to say that she got to work in the municipal. She got to work in the original one that was built in the 20s. She got to work in Swanhaven. She got to work in the auxiliary. She got to work finally in the QE2 hospital. She was so proud that they had made sure that she stuck around until the QE2 hospital was finished. And in 1985, when it was finished, she said, "That's it, I'm done." But that was not the end by any means, of course, and in 1985, after that completion, she retired. Okay, but retirement meant nothing for her. She was a worker, and she continued to work. She gardened, she spent time traveling, she had spent time enjoying time with her ever-growing number of grandchildren, and by that time, great-grandchildren. Okay, life was still busy for her. In 1991, unfortunately, Grandpa Pete passed away. Okay, but not willing to grow old just yet. A new chapter started in 1993, going for coffee with Auntie Elsie to the mall. She met this guy, Lud Wilson. Okay, and they had a lifelong bond, lots of good times beyond that, until his passing in 2007. But of course, it's just a blip in time for her. She continued on, stayed at home, enjoyed gardening, visit from friends, neighbors. No one got away without a cup of tea. No one got away without a visit and a chat. You know, whatever it may have been. Politics, it might have been family, it might have been gardening, but there was always something there to talk about. She stayed in her home until the end, right up until the last day, gardening away. And that was what her happy place was. Left to celebrate her life is her son Mike and Sylvie of Dawson Creek, daughter-in-law Leora and John Page, grandchildren Lynn and Brent Chabon, Debbie and Ross Crevassier, Kim and Bruce White, Shani and John Antipovich, Daryl Rappel Jr., Mike and Christine Rappel, Doug and Kathleen Rappel, Angela and Pat Collins, and a legacy of nieces, nephews, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren that have all loved and cherished and will miss her dearly. Helen was predeceased by her husband Pete in December of 1991 and her son Daryl in May of 1996, as well as all of her brothers and sisters. And if anybody over the last little while has been to a visit at her house, she made it very clear she outlived everybody. She made that very clear. We wanted as a family to say thank you to everybody that helped in this time, the people at the hospital, the ambulance staff, the nursing staff, everybody that had a part to play in keeping her in her home, visiting her, helping her along the way. Thank you very much. We will miss you. We will miss you. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to come up and share a few words? We'll give you this time right now. So just come up. So I take it you're good. You'll share your memories later on when you're together. Well, when someone passes away, it is never easy to say goodbye. I want you to know that even though Helen has passed away, you'll never forget her. Her memory will live on in your hearts, in your conversations, and in the stories you tell. It's important for you to remember those things, to take the time to remember, to share. Grieving is a tricky thing, but when we laugh together, when we cry together, and we talk and share things together, that's the process of walking through grief. Life is a gift, and I think all of you here would agree that Helen was a gift to you. I know that she's impacted you probably in many ways. She's taught you lessons, and she's touched your life. The hard thing with grief is the price you pay for loving someone is grief. And that's that hurt and that pain in the pit of your stomach. But as we lay Helen to rest, I encourage you to don't let the grief stop here, but continue to grieve with others in conversations, a phone call, a visit, coming back to this place to visit and to share. This is what it's for. This cemetery here is a place to remember, to talk. Maybe you just are having a hard day and you need a place to come. Come here, sit down. Talk with Grandma and Grandpa, Mom and Dad, and have those conversations. And for those that are watching at home that weren't able to come today, I want to encourage you to take some time in the next while to come visit this place. When you can, come down, share, and be a part of this. Today we publicly say goodbye to Helen, but we'll never forget the life she lived. And you have to realize that the life that she lived leaves a legacy in you. And that legacy is in your memories and in your stories, in how she touched you, and how that you take those things that you've learned and pass them on to the next generations. That is the legacy that we leave. Remember Helen for who she was to you and all that she meant to you. Let her life have that lasting legacy based on the life that you are living. We commit Helen's body to the grave, from earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. Helen, may you rest in peace. I'm going to pass out flowers now from the casket spray. And you can take this flower and you can take it home. Or if you want, you can just place it on top of the casket. It's whatever works for you and what it's going to help you. Feel free to keep those roses, or you can place them on the casket before you leave. That's completely up to you. So I invite you to take as much time as you need here today, just to remember, reflect, and process what you're going through. And let this be a place you come back to in the future. So this officially ends the internment, but take your time and share your memories with those around you, and just share this time together. Thank you.